The Galactic Council Hall was calm and orderly. Light from 1,000 stars passed through the transparent ceiling. Delegates from many worlds sat in wide circles, their seats floating gently above the floor. Each species looked different, but their expressions were the same: confidence. Today's meeting was important. It was about humans. A tall reptilian commander spoke first. His voice was cold and sure. Humans are divided. Their worlds fight each other. Their technology is behind ours. They are not a threat. Several delegates nodded. Some even laughed quietly. A crystalline being added, they rely too much on emotion. Fear controls them. Fear makes them weak. The council agreed. Humans were seen as loud, violent, but small. Dangerous only to themselves. At the edge of the hall, away from the main circle, sat one silent figure. He was old. Older than most civilizations present. His body looked fragile, wrapped in dark robes. His eyes were deep, filled with memories no one else carried. He had watched empires rise and burn. He had seen mistakes repeat. He listened. When the council finished speaking, the silent being slowly stood up. The room became quiet, not because of respect but because of curiosity. He spoke softly, yet his voice carried across the hall. "You are wrong about humans." Some delegates turned. Others showed irritation. "They fight each other," the being continued. "Yes. But that is not weakness. That is practice." A low murmur spread through the council. The reptilian commander responded sharply, "We have studied them for decades. They are unpredictable, emotional, and inefficient." The being nodded slowly. "That is why they are dangerous." The council grew uneasy. "Humans do not fear war," he said. "They fear losing those they love. And when that fear is triggered, they do not stop." One delegate laughed. "Are you suggesting we should fear them?" The being looked directly at the council. "I am saying this," he replied. "Before the war begins, you must understand one thing. Humans do not fight for conquest. They fight for survival. And survival makes them relentless." The hall fell silent again. But confidence soon returned. "Enough," the council leader declared. "Your warnings are noted. But the decision stands." The being closed his eyes. He did not argue. Because he knew something they did not. Far away on a small blue world, humans were already watching the stars. And they were already preparing. The first strike did not come with warning. No declaration. No message. No chance to speak. A fleet from the Carthan Dominion slipped out of hyperspace at the edge of a human-controlled system. Their ships were massive, dark, and silent. To them this was not a war. It was a lesson. The target was a small human colony orbiting a yellow star. It was not a military world. There were no defense fleets waiting. Just stations, farms, and cities slowly rotating in space. From the Carthan command ship, the order was given. Begin suppression. Energy beams cut through the void. Satellites vanished in flashes of light. Communication arrays went dark. One by one, the colony's outer defenses were erased before they could even respond. Inside the human stations, alarms screamed. Red lights filled the halls. Doors sealed. People ran, not in panic but with purpose. Families were moved into shelters. Transports launched in tight formations, following pre-planned routes. The Carthan commanders watched the data streams and laughed. "They are running," one officer said. "As expected." Human ships did not fire back. Not once. They focused on evacuation. Small vessels shielded the larger ones. Cargo ships were turned into lifeboats. Every movement followed a pattern, calm and controlled. Within hours, the colony was empty. Then the Carthan fleet destroyed what remained. Cities burned. Stations broke apart. The planet itself was scarred from orbit. When the last human structure fell, the Carthan commanders declared victory. News spread quickly across the galaxy. Humans retreat after first contact. Human defenses collapse. Humans confirmed as weak. In the Galactic Council Hall, satisfaction filled the air. The reptilian commander spoke again. The warning was unnecessary. They fled. Exactly as predicted. Only one seat remained silent. The ancient being watched the reports without expression. He saw what the others did not. Humans had not sent a distress call. They had not begged for help. They had not asked for mercy. Instead, data packets moved through hidden channels. Information flowed faster than any fleet. Every attack angle, every energy signature, every weakness was recorded. Far away, in deep space, human commanders reviewed the footage. No shouting. No anger. Only quiet focus. "Casualties?" one asked. "Minimal." Evacuation complete, came the reply. Another voice spoke, calm and cold. Then Phase 1 is finished. Back in the council, a junior delegate raised a question. Should we continue pressure? Force them to surrender fully? The council leader smiled. There is no need. They have already shown us who they are. The ancient being finally spoke again. No, he said quietly. They have shown you what they want you to see. No one listened. The Carthan Dominion began moving deeper into human territory. Their fleets advanced with confidence, spreading thin, claiming systems without resistance. That was the second mistake. Because humans were not retreating. They were mapping the enemy. They were learning how the Carthan ships moved, how they communicated, how they relied on centralized command. And most importantly, they were deciding how much they were willing to lose to end the war forever. The ancient being looked at the stars and whispered words no one heard. Now, he said, the galaxy will learn the difference between weakness and restraint. The human response did not come with noise. There were no public speeches. No angry broadcasts sent into space. No fleets rushing blindly toward the enemy. Instead, deep beneath the surface of Earth and across dozens of hidden stations, humans gathered in quiet rooms filled with light and data. This was not a war council like the galaxy imagined. There were no thrones. No symbols of power. No shouting voices fighting for control. Only long tables, calm faces, and screens showing stars, fleets, and timelines. At the center of the room stood a woman in a simple uniform. No medals. No decorations. Her hair was tied back, her expression focused. She did not introduce herself. She did not need to. Begin, she said. The screens changed instantly. The destroyed colony appeared from multiple angles. Every beam. Every impact. Every second of the attack was replayed in perfect detail. A man spoke from the far side of the room. His voice was steady. They didn't expect resistance. That made them careless. Another human added, their weapons are powerful but inefficient. High energy cost. Slow recharge. An AI voice joined the discussion, neutral and precise. Carthan fleet doctrine relies on centralized command nodes. Disruption probability, high. No one celebrated. No one smiled. This was not about revenge. It was about understanding. Humans did not see war as glory. They saw it as failure. Something to be ended as quickly, and permanently, as possible. A younger officer leaned forward. They destroyed a civilian colony. The woman nodded. Yes, that tells us everything. She pointed to the screen. They believe fear will break us. They believe loss will make us surrender. She paused. They do not know us. The room was silent. Then she continued, humans fight each other because we argue. We disagree. We test ideas against ideas. She looked around the table. But when an outside force threatens our survival, we stop arguing. The screen shifted again. Old footage appeared, ancient wars from Earth's past. Black and white images. Cities rebuilding. People standing together after destruction. We have lost before, she said. And every time we learned. A strategist spoke quietly. They think retreat means weakness. The woman shook her head. Retreat means choice. She turned to the AI. Show them Phase 0. New visuals appeared. Invisible satellites. Silent probes drifting near Carthan-controlled space. Small, forgotten objects placed years ago during peaceful exploration. They never noticed these, the AI said. They were not looking. Humans had explored the galaxy slowly, carefully. Always recording. Always preparing for possibilities they hoped would never come. Hope, however, had never replaced planning. A voice from the back asked the question no one else wanted to say. How far are we willing to go? The woman did not answer immediately. She walked to the center of the room and placed her hand on the table. We will not destroy them because we hate them, she said. We will stop them because they will not stop. The room understood. Another officer spoke. Casualties on our side? Minimal so far, the AI replied. But projected losses increase if war continues beyond 3 cycles. The woman nodded. Then we end it before that. She looked at the assembled humans. Humans do not win wars by being stronger, she said. We win by lasting longer. Plans began to form, not drawn on emotion but on patience. They would not attack fleets directly. They would not defend every system. They would not rush. Instead, they would let the enemy move forward. Every advance would stretch Carthan's supply lines. Every victory would make them overconfident. Every captured system would become a trap. Humans understood something most species did not. War was not about battles. It was about pressure. A scientist spoke next. We can disrupt their communication lattice without them noticing at first. A tactician added, if we delay resupply by even a small margin, their fleets begin to fracture. Another voice followed. Psychological impact will be severe once they realize what's happening. The woman listened to all of it. Then she raised one hand. One rule, she said. The room waited. We protect civilians. On all sides. There was no disagreement. Humans remembered their own history. The cost of forgetting that rule had been too high. Plans were finalized quietly. Not for glory. Not for revenge. But for an ending. Far away, the Carthan Dominion celebrated. Their fleets moved deeper into human territory, spreading thin, confident that resistance would never come. They did not see the silent changes. They did not notice navigation errors growing more frequent. They did not question why long-range scans felt empty. They did not understand why some messages arrived late, or not at all. Back in the Galactic Council Hall, reports came in. Human resistance remains non-existent. Territory gained with minimal losses. The Council relaxed. Only the ancient being watched the data differently. He saw patterns. He saw gaps. He saw time being used as a weapon. He whispered to himself, they have begun. In human space, fleets remained hidden. Weapons stayed cold. Humans waited. Because humans knew something the galaxy did not. When humans finally fight, they do not aim to win the next battle. They aim to make sure there is no next war. And when that moment came, the galaxy would learn why patience was the most dangerous weapon humans ever created. The first signs were small. So small that the Carthan Dominion ignored them. A supply convoy arrived 6 hours late. A long-range scanner returned empty data. A command relay needed a reboot for no clear reason. Nothing serious. Nothing alarming. Carthan fleets continued their advance through human space, claiming system after system without resistance. Flags were raised. Records were updated. Victories were announced. From the outside it looked effortless. But inside the fleets something felt wrong. A Carthan navigation officer frowned at his console. Confirm star map, he ordered. The display flickered, then stabilized. Map confirmed, the system replied. Yet the stars did not look right. Distances felt slightly off. Jump points required recalculation. Each correction was minor, but they added up. Travel took longer. Fuel usage increased. The Carthan commanders blamed faulty equipment. They did not suspect an enemy. Because no enemy was visible. Human space had gone quiet. No distress signals. No emergency broadcasts. No angry messages. Just silence. In the Galactic Council Hall, updates continued to arrive. Carthan advance proceeding as planned. Human resistance remains absent. Some delegates began discussing trade routes and post-war divisions. The war they believed was already over. Only the ancient being remained still. He studied the reports carefully. The numbers were correct. The conclusions were wrong. Far from the Council's eyes, human systems were changing. Not burning. Not exploding. Changing. Human fleets moved without lights, without signals. Their ships traveled along paths that avoided known sensors. Old mining routes were reused. Forgotten corridors were opened. Humans did not cut communication all at once. They thinned it. A relay here failed for maintenance. A data buoy there drifted slightly off alignment. A repair ship vanished, reported as lost to mechanical failure. Each incident was small. Together they formed a pattern. Inside a Carthan command ship, a senior officer slammed a claw against the console. I want answers, he demanded. Why are our reports delayed? A technician responded nervously. Command nodes are functioning. But signal integrity is inconsistent. Inconsistent how? The technician hesitated. As if someone is listening. And choosing when to let messages through. The officer laughed sharply. Impossible. Humans lack that level of coordination. But his laughter faded quickly. Because another report appeared. 2 supply fleets had failed to arrive. No wreckage. No battle signs. Just absence. Meanwhile, human actions remained invisible. They did not destroy ships. They redirected them. Navigation data was altered just enough to send convoys on longer routes. Fuel ran low. Crews made emergency landings on empty worlds. Human recovery teams waited there, not to kill but to disable ships and evacuate crews. No explosions. No screams. No evidence. Carthan soldiers were taken prisoner without ever seeing their captors. In one system, A Carthan fleet arrived expecting to reinforce an occupied world. They found the system empty. No humans. No signals. No resistance. Just silence. Sensors showed nothing unusual. Yet every ship in the fleet lost communication with Central Command at the same time. Panic spread. Orders were repeated. Signals reset. Emergency protocols activated. Nothing worked. Then one message appeared on every screen. A simple human transmission. No threats. No demands. Only coordinates. And a timer. The Carthan commander stared at the display. What does it mean? An officer whispered, "It's a rendezvous point." Why would humans? The message ended. At that exact moment, the fleet's engines shut down. Not destroyed. Disabled. Power systems dropped to emergency levels. Weapons went cold. Shields failed one by one. Still no human ships appeared. The fleet was left drifting. Alone. Across the galaxy, similar events unfolded. Fleets stalled. Supplies vanished. Communications fractured. The galaxy grew quiet, not peaceful but tense. In the council hall, confusion replaced confidence. Why has the Carthan advance slowed? One delegate asked. Another added, why are their casualty reports incomplete? The reptilian commander frowned. Temporary setbacks. Nothing more. The ancient being finally spoke. Tell me, he asked calmly, how many messages from the front arrive late? The council hesitated. Late? Compared to what? The leader asked. The being's eyes narrowed. Compared to reality. No one answered. He continued, humans are not fighting your fleets. They are fighting time. The council dismissed him again. But fear had begun to grow. Within the Carthan Dominion, morale cracked. Crews whispered about ghost ships. About systems that swallowed fleets whole. About silence that followed orders. One Carthan captain recorded a private log. We have not seen a single human warship. Yet we are losing ships every cycle. Not to weapons. To confusion. He paused, then added quietly, I think they are letting us fail. On Earth, human commanders watched the situation carefully. No celebrations. No cheers. Just monitoring. Phase 2 is progressing, the AI reported. Enemy cohesion decreasing by projected values. The woman from the council room nodded. Any civilian losses? She asked. None detected. Good. She studied a star map filled with dimming points. Do not accelerate, she ordered. Let them exhaust themselves. Humans understood restraint. They knew fear spread faster in silence than in fire. In the Galactic Council Hall, a new report arrived. Carthan request emergency support. Gasps filled the chamber. The reptilian commander stood abruptly. That is impossible. The ancient being looked at him with quiet sadness. This is the price of ignoring history, he said. The council leader demanded answers. But there were none. Because the galaxy had finally begun to understand. The humans were not hiding. They were everywhere. And they were ending the war without ever announcing it. As the stars remained silent, one truth became clear to all who dared to see it. The loudest wars burn bright. But the most terrifying ones happen so quietly that by the time you notice them, it is already over. Fear did not arrive as an explosion or a scream. It arrived as a question no one could answer. Across the Carthan Dominion, commanders began asking the same thing in quiet, private channels. Where are our ships? Reports no longer made sense. Fleets that should have been advancing simply stopped reporting. Supply lines that once flowed smoothly now felt thin and fragile, like threads ready to snap. No battles were recorded, no great defeats announced, yet power was slipping away one system at a time. The absence of violence made the situation worse, because there was nothing clear to fight against. Within occupied systems, Carthan soldiers grew uneasy. They had conquered many worlds before but never like this. On captured planets, humans did not resist openly. Cities were empty, infrastructure inactive, skies silent. It felt as if the population had vanished, leaving behind lifeless shells of civilization. Patrols walked streets with weapons ready, yet nothing happened. No ambushes. No uprisings. Just quiet. And in that quiet, fear grew stronger than any enemy fire. Rumors spread faster than official reports. Crews whispered that human ships could not be detected. Others claimed humans could shut down engines from across star systems. Some said the humans were not attacking at all, that they were simply watching and waiting for the Carthan forces to collapse on their own. Each rumor was different but all led to the same feeling: loss of control. The Dominion had always relied on order and strength. Now both were slipping away. In the Galactic Council Hall, confidence finally cracked. Delegates who once laughed now argued in sharp, nervous voices. Emergency meetings were called and then called again, each one ending with fewer answers than the last. Data from the front lines arrived late, incomplete, or not at all. The council screens showed gaps where fleets should have been. Empty spaces where power once stood. The galaxy was not watching a war anymore. It was watching something unravel. The reptilian commander tried to maintain authority, insisting the situation was temporary, but even his voice lacked its earlier certainty. He demanded reports, demanded explanations, demanded reassurance. None came. Instead, a single message arrived from the Carthan frontier, marked urgent and unverified. It stated that several fleets had surrendered, not after battle but after being surrounded by silence, unable to move, unable to communicate, and unable to understand what was happening to them. That message changed everything. Fear moved beyond the Carthan Dominion and into the wider galaxy. Neutral species began closing borders. Trade routes were abandoned. Long-standing alliances were quietly reconsidered. Everyone remembered the warning that had been given before the war began, and everyone realized how quickly they had dismissed it. Humans were no longer seen as weak or emotional. They were seen as something far more dangerous, patient. The ancient being watched all of this without satisfaction. His expression held no pride, only sorrow. He spoke softly during one council session, his voice cutting through the noise. Fear is spreading because humans have not shown their full strength, he said. They have shown restraint. And restraint confuses those who only understand force. Meanwhile, far from the council's chaos, human command remained calm. Data flowed in clean, controlled streams. Each captured ship, each disabled fleet, each abandoned system was logged and analyzed. Humans did not rush to finish the war. They allowed fear to do its work. They understood that once fear replaced confidence, the enemy would begin making mistakes on their own. Inside one Carthan command vessel, a senior officer stared at a dark screen where a connection should have been. His claws trembled slightly as he recorded a final log. "We trained for battle," he said quietly. "We trained for loss. We did not train for this. We are fighting nothing, and losing everything." By the time the council reconvened once more, the truth could no longer be ignored. The galaxy was afraid not because humans were destroying worlds, but because they were proving they never needed to. Power was being taken apart piece by piece, quietly and carefully, leaving no heroic last stand and no clear enemy to strike back at. And in that growing fear, one understanding finally took hold across the stars. When humans chose to fight, they did not seek to be feared in the moment. They allowed fear to grow on its own, slow, silent, and unstoppable, until resistance no longer felt possible. Fear had spread across the galaxy, but fear alone did not explain what was happening. Many species had been feared before. Powerful empires had risen, crushed their enemies, and ruled through force. Yet this was different. Humans were not ruling. They were not demanding tribute or territory. They were not even showing themselves. The question began to echo in every council chamber, every command deck, every frightened mind. Why don't the humans stop? The ancient being understood the question better than anyone. During one quiet council session, when the arguments had faded and exhaustion filled the hall, he finally spoke again. His voice was low, almost gentle. "You believe humans are continuing because they enjoy victory," he said. "You are wrong. The council listened now. They continue because they remember." At his request, historical archives were opened, records few species bothered to study. Images appeared above the council floor, showing an unfamiliar world covered in blue oceans and green land. Earth, the being said. Their home. The images shifted. Early human cities. Simple machines. Crowded streets. Then war. Not one war. Many. The council watched in silence as scenes of destruction played out. Smoke rising from ruined cities, people digging through rubble, families standing together among broken buildings. Humans learned early, the being continued, that survival is not guaranteed. They learned that peace is fragile. And they learned that forgetting is dangerous. The images changed again. Humans rebuilding. Children returning to schools. Fields replanted. Life continuing. They lost millions, the being said. Then billions. And each time they wrote it down. They taught it. They remembered. On human command stations, far from the council hall, the same history guided every decision. Human commanders did not speak of revenge. They spoke of prevention. One officer reviewed casualty projections and shook his head. If we leave the Carthan Dominion intact, they will rebuild. They will attack again. Another responded, not if they understand the cost. The woman in command listened carefully. We are not here to punish, she said. We are here to make sure this never happens again. That belief ran deep in human culture. Humans did not fight until they were exhausted. They fought until the threat was gone. Not destroyed in anger, but removed in certainty. The ancient being explained it simply to the council. Humans never stop because stopping early means repeating history, he said. And humans refuse to repeat the same mistake twice. Across Carthan space the pressure increased. Isolated fleets began to surrender without orders. Commanders chose safety for their crews over pride. Entire systems powered down defenses, sending quiet signals of compliance. Human responses were immediate and controlled. Surrendered crews were secured, treated, and removed from conflict zones. Civilians were protected. Infrastructure was left intact where possible. This confused the galaxy even more. Why show mercy? One council delegate asked. If they are so dangerous, why not finish them completely? The ancient being looked at the delegate for a long moment. Because humans know what happens after war, he said. Humans had learned that total destruction created only future enemies. Ending a war meant shaping what came next. On Earth, long before humanity reached the stars, they had fought wars that ended in ruins and hatred. They had also fought wars that ended with rebuilding and cooperation. They remembered the difference. That memory shaped every choice now. In one captured Carthan system, a human officer spoke to a detained commander. This war ends when you can no longer imagine fighting us again, the human said calmly. The Carthan commander lowered his head. He already understood. In the council hall, fear slowly changed into realization. Humans were not unstoppable because of strength. They were unstoppable because of endurance. They could wait. They could adapt. They could carry the weight of loss without breaking. And once they decided to act, they did not stop halfway. The ancient being concluded his explanation with quiet finality. You asked why humans never stop, he said. It is because they know the cost of stopping too soon. Across the galaxy, the stars remained silent. But now, that silence carried meaning. It was not the silence of uncertainty anymore. It was the silence of an ending drawing closer. The silence did not break. It settled. Across the Carthan Dominion, systems that once pulsed with activity dimmed one by one. Shipyards stopped producing. Command hubs went dark. Fleets that still had fuel stayed in place, unwilling to move without orders that no longer came. The Dominion had not been defeated in battle. It had been drained of its ability to continue. For the first time in its long history, the Carthan Dominion faced something it did not understand. An enemy that did not seek territory, glory, or domination. Human pressure increased carefully, almost gently. Human fleets appeared openly now, not as invaders but as boundaries. They positioned themselves at key junctions, not firing, not threatening, simply present. Their message was clear without being spoken: this far and no further. Carthan leaders attempted to regroup. Emergency councils were formed. Old doctrines were pulled from archives. New strategies were suggested and then abandoned. Every option relied on one assumption: that the humans would eventually rush, overextend, or make a mistake. They did none of those things. Human command continued to move with patience that felt endless. Each day that passed cost the Carthan Dominion more than the day before. Morale collapsed. Loyalty fractured. Some systems declared independence. Others openly requested human mediation, no longer believing the Dominion could protect them. The price of the war was becoming clear. It was not paid in destroyed planets or burning cities. It was paid in trust. In the Galactic Council Hall, the atmosphere was heavy. The delegates no longer argued loudly. They spoke in low voices, careful with every word. Reports now arrived not from battlefronts, but from internal Carthan channels. Leaks, pleas, fragmented messages asking for negotiation. The reptilian commander stood before the council, his posture no longer proud. We must intervene, he said. This war cannot continue. The ancient being looked at him with tired eyes. It is almost over, he replied. Whether you intervene or not. The council demanded a solution. A ceasefire. A treaty. Anything that would stop the slow collapse spreading across the region. But humans did not rush to accept talks. They waited until the message came from the Carthan core itself. A single transmission sent on an open channel visible to the entire galaxy. We acknowledge defeat. The words were simple. There were no excuses. No accusations. No threats. Only surrender. Human command received the message without celebration. The woman in charge read it once, then nodded. Begin final phase, she ordered. Human fleets moved inward, not to conquer but to stabilize. Borders were secured. Rogue elements were disarmed. Supply routes were restored, this time under human oversight. Systems that had been damaged by the war were supported, not punished. The final price of the war became visible then. The Carthan dominion was not destroyed. It was transformed. Its military was dismantled. Its command structure dissolved. Its ability to project force beyond its borders was removed completely. What remained was a collection of worlds forced to look inward, to rebuild, and to remember why the war had begun. In a quiet chamber within the council hall, the ancient being met with a human envoy. You warned us, the envoy said. Why? The being paused before answering. Because once, he said slowly, my people made the same mistake. He looked toward the stars. We ignored the quiet ones. We measured strength by noise. And we paid the price. The human nodded. Now you understand us. Yes, the being replied. And now so does the galaxy. As the final human fleets took their positions, the war officially ended, not with a great announcement, but with a steady return of communication, trade, and movement. Life resumed, changed but intact. Across the stars, species recorded what had happened. They wrote new doctrines. They changed old assumptions. They taught future generations a simple lesson. The final price of the war was not paid by the defeated alone. It was paid by the galaxy, which had learned too late what happens when patience is mistaken for weakness. And in the quiet that followed, one truth remained. When humans choose to end a war, they do not leave room for it to begin again. The war had ended, but the galaxy remained still. Not silent with peace, but still with realization. Species across the stars moved carefully now, speaking in measured tones, double-checking every report, every fleet movement, every claim of victory. The Carthan dominion, once feared for its relentless expansion, now lay fractured and hesitant, its leaders humbled, its fleets scattered and monitored. And humans did not celebrate. On the bridge of the human command station orbiting a quiet, neutral system, the woman in charge looked at the star map. Every dot represented a system touched by war. Every line showed the paths they had chosen. Paths that had led not to destruction but to control, to stability. There were no cheering crews. No parades. Only quiet relief. One human officer approached. Are they safe? He asked, pointing to the recently stabilized systems. They will be, she replied. For now. But we will watch. Always. It was a pattern the galaxy had not seen before. Humans did not conquer to rule. They did not punish for revenge. They acted to end conflict. And then, even when the danger had passed, they maintained vigilance. In the council hall, the delegates were tired, silent, and wary. Discussions of revenge, territory, and influence had vanished. They now spoke of rebuilding, of understanding, of remembering. The ancient being observed quietly, his face etched with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The lesson he had tried to convey long ago was now clear to all. Underestimate humans at your own peril. Yet humans did not demand recognition. They did not declare victory. Instead, small teams traveled between systems, repairing infrastructure, restoring communication, and helping populations rebuild. They treated former enemies with unexpected care, ensuring that the mistakes of history, widespread destruction, hatred, and cycles of revenge, would not repeat. On Earth, humanity returned to their routines as if nothing had happened. Children went to school. Scientists studied the stars. Farmers tended fields. But beneath the normalcy was a quiet understanding of their own strength, and a preparedness for the future that no one else could match. Every human knew that the galaxy had learned a lesson in restraint, endurance, and silent power. In one neutral star system, an alien leader spoke quietly to a Carthan representative. They did not destroy us. They did not even humiliate us. Yet we feel defeated. Because they taught us, the Carthan replied. That patience can be stronger than fire, and silence more terrifying than war. And the ancient being, watching from the council hall, nodded. Humans had achieved what no one expected. They had ended a war without bloodshed overwhelming the galaxy. They had reshaped the balance of power not through conquest, but through endurance, strategy, and the unyielding will to survive. The final message humans left for the galaxy was clear. Do not measure strength by size, by noise, or by violence. Measure it by what survives, by what endures, and by what refuses to stop until the threat has been truly ended. Stars glimmered as fleets quietly returned to their stations. Trade routes slowly reopened. Life began to move forward again. But beneath the calm a shadow lingered, a shadow of respect, fear and cautious awe. Every species now knew the truth about humans. They did not fight to be feared. They fought to survive, to endure, and when necessary to ensure that no war would ever touch them again. As the ancient being looked out at the galaxy, he spoke softly, more to himself than anyone else. They are not the loudest. They are not the strongest. But they are unstoppable. And in the quiet that followed, the galaxy learned to watch the humans carefully. Not because they sought war, but because when humans fought, the price was absolute, measured and final. No system, no empire, and no council would ever forget it. The war had ended, but humanity's story had only just begun. The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it. A quiet hum, a shimmer in the darkness, a reminder that patience, endurance and resolve could shape the galaxy without a single explosion being necessary. Humans had become more than a species. They had become a standard by which the galaxy measured the true meaning of power. And that power was patient, silent, and eternal.